Promise yourself. Not that you'll know everything, but that you will continue forward when you don't. You don't get awards for suffering. You have to suffer and win. They were there when I was 26 on the couch with 20 subscribers. Sometimes how you speak and how you project can be more important than what you say. This is a feeling that's so powerful because I know 99.99999% of the world would go, no. For the love of God, ignore all the noise and people telling you what's best and where you need to be and where you need to go, right? Trust your intuition and your art and keep showing up day after day after day after day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today we have a very special guest on who is down here visiting. We actually just did another podcast with a mutual friend and a guy by the name of Eddie Pinero. Really appreciate you being on, brother. And you're an international TEDx speaker, video producer, founder of Your World Within, which is a motivational media company. I checked out that YouTube channel, by the way. Unbelievable. The thumbnails that you do on that channel are on another level. And man, you've done a lot of really big things. I can't even read it all off. We're going to get to it in the podcast. On social media, you've had 200 million streams. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
It's on another level, right? You've 600,000 subscribers on YouTube, podcast, 9 million downloads, and you're big on every platform. So, without further ado, I really appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you making time, and I'm excited to jump into it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been watching your podcast for a long time. So yeah,
I really
it's
appreciate
cool
that.
Cool to be here.
And did you find me through Tyler over here?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. That was I watched the episode with you and Tyler. It was the first time I saw
love
your
that.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man. I know you're in town right now, and you're going to be doing another podcast. So you're going back to back.
Moving and shaking. Yeah. That's the way it goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we dive into, how did you get here? Obviously, we just read off a bunch of really cool stuff that you've done, right? And I can only imagine where you're headed. So, how did you get into the game of doing TEDx talks and being a motivational speaker and posting all of the content that you post? And, what led you to that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in that it certainly wasn't planned, and I talk about, when people ask me, how they can find that space where they're doing what they love and they're growing and succeeding in whatever capacity. And to me, the answer is always exploration. And that's really what it was. It was, learning to say no to what I don't want to do. I was sort of doing the corporate thing for a while. And, I have a lot of friends that love that environment, thrive in that environment, which wasn't my thing. And so I took a year. And I literally, I was playing music around Boston. I was producing music for people. I was taking videos out, making, little films. I was blogging, just doing all this stuff and kind of learning what I liked and didn't like. The very first, I guess, speech or video that I made was just a promise to myself because, a year being away from work, you start to get a little nervous, right? It's like taking a camera out and making a video is not paying the bills. And it was just a speech called Ode to Excellence, for once, put your back against the wall and try something different. Don't run back yet, and that's what it was. And the speech was combined all those things I love to do, where it's I compose music to a lot of my speeches, or I did. I do the speaking, I do the writing, and again, shoot some of the B-roll. So it just felt like an art, but also something that was expressive and valuable and helped people. And that was sort of the beginning, where it's all right, there's something here. Let's build.
And what were you doing prior to that?
I was working in an insurance company.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had a learning and development department. And so basically what I was doing was creating curriculum for onboarding people that had no idea about the insurance industry or kids right out of college. Right. Sure. And so it'd be sort of getting them up to speed with the organization in the industry.
And you didn't like that, or you were ready for a change? You wanted to be your own boss? What was it that led you to getting into the world that you're in now?
I think just sort of the nature of the industry is stuffy compared to what I wanted to do. I've always been a little bit creative and a little bit out there. And I remember it was a PowerPoint situation where someone was you have to use black and white. And not that I cared that much, but I'm dude, I'm so in the box here. And there are so many things I want to do and explore and just try. And so again, like I didn't know what that was, but I knew where I wasn't it, you know? So that was like the kind of the launch pad.
Yeah. What did you, was the first thing that you did getting into the game of YouTube in particular?
Yeah, that was the platform. You know, and I had a few like music channels too, where I do like music videos and, you know, a little bit of experience there, but it was, YouTube, which is good. I mean, it's good that, you know, there's that temptation, that inclination to spread yourself so thin. There's 912 platforms, you know, and it's like, YouTube was it. Once a week for like the first 3 years, something like that.
And you started in the motivational world, right?
Yeah. So I started, this is one of these things that drives you crazy. Anytime you read a motivational book, the first thing the author always says is like, I'm not a motivational speaker. Like, it's motivation, right? And so like I call it that. The algorithm loves that. I get it. But you know, what it is sort of me describing and taking the listener through what I'm dealing with. So it's a first person account of the times I won, the times I got my ass kicked, the times things were great, the times they weren't, and telling that story, putting that out there and saying, hey, this is what I dealt with. And by the way, here's how I think it could help you, you know? And I just really love that sort of intersection of creativity and personal development.
Yeah. You know, I've listened to a lot of like Eric Thomas and, you know, very similar, I think, right? In the regard of like the motivation, you know, how is the content that you put out like different from somebody like Eric Thomas?
Well, it's almost like writing. Like every author's a little bit different because it's their expression. I always say like, you know, there's a time and a place. I categorize sort of because I consume a lot of it, you know, categorize the personal development I consume. Like there's a time where I need Eric Thomas and I need Gary Vee. And that time is, Ed, I know you don't want to, but get your ass up, go. Like be better, do more. You don't want to run. I go to them for that. And then there are times where like maybe personally I'm dealing with something or, you know, sort of in a valley, a mental valley of some sort, and need to sort of reclaim my why or look in the mirror and understand like this is par for the course. And in that situation, I'll go for something with a little bit more depth, like maybe an Eckhart Tolle or a Jordan Peterson. And so I try and take a little bit of everything, you know, like it's certainly reflective of what I'm feeling and what I'm going through, the stories that I tell. But I'm sure there's influences, you know, all over the spectrum.
I love how you do it though, you know, and I've actually listened to quite a bit of your content, you know, over the years. And the algorithm has just given it to me. You know, like I've always been a big Eric Thomas, like Les Brown, Bob Proctor, Gary Vee, you know, Grant Cardone, and I could go on, you know. And then you're right in that world. Like, you know, you're like, I'll go watch one of their videos and then one of your videos gets served up to me on a silver platter, you know.
Dude, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And, you know, I've always recognized like quite literally your voice. Like you have a very distinct voice, you know. And, dude, I love it. Like I'm you know, I'm grateful to obviously be here and interviewing you. And I know that we're going to drop a lot of value.
That means the world, man. I appreciate that.
In the podcast. Yeah. So, and I love the idea that you're really speaking from an authentic place of like what, like you said a minute ago, right? Whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're going through, you know, and you're motivating people, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a bit of a different place than maybe some other people might be motivating from. And obviously I won't name names and they might not even be any of the names that I just mentioned, but I think like you're motivating them from like, oh, I can relate to you type of place.
I hope so. That's the goal, you know. There have been times like as you're growing and experimenting with different things, like don't get me wrong, I've tried to reverse engineer something that I think people might need or might want. But it doesn't come through the same way to the point where after a few times it's like, that's not it. That's not my thing, you know? And I think, you know, people that have been listening for a long time, they get value in the.
Hey, real quick, I just want you to do me a huge favor. If you're enjoying the show and you're enjoying all the amazing guests that we've been having on lately, then do me a massive favor and smash the like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you have not already. I would greatly appreciate it. It would mean the world to me, and we will be able to bring on a lot more big names if you help us out. Now let's get back to the show.
In the little intricacies of what I'm going through. And because they were there when I was, 26 on the couch with 20 subscribers, and it's like, I'm talking about these things as I'm going through them. I mean, you could make an argument the last 3 years was finally that hockey puck, that exponential growth that I've been talking about and saying that I believe was going to happen, and just sort of bringing everyone along. So there's that piece too. It's like, hopefully it inspires people to just stick with it and believe that, if you don't stop and you keep making the necessary adjustments and pivots, like I've changed a million times over the years, not in terms of my style, but in terms of the delivery. And you mentioned like thumbnails, titles, little things like that, always evolving, always growing, and doing whatever I could to get it out there. So that's the goal.
Your thumbnails are spectacular. And I'm going to ask you in a little while how you create such phenomenal thumbnails. And then Jacob over here will mirror what you do, because they're incredible. They're on another level. But we'll get there in a little while. So like, at what point did you make a decision of like, okay, I'm now going to, because there's the virtual like YouTube, I'm gonna have the motivational channel, right? And I'm gonna do that. And then there's the, I'm going to go speak on stages. I'm going to do TEDx. Like, I'm going to freaking get on an airplane and go talk to people, right?
Yep.
Like, when did that happen for you?
Yeah. So part of it's preference, and then part of it's like being practical. So right now, and I do think there will be a point, I'm like working down the road on making it more of a live performance and maybe changing it a little bit in a way to bring it out later. But right now, it's first of all, I don't enjoy it as much as the creative process, as being alone in my studio and writing to music and doing that thing. The second is the scalability of the online world is just nuts. Now, you can walk and chew gum at the same time again, but my focus has been like, the here and now is everything. Like, let's make this happen. And it was funny enough, it was COVID that did that, because I was speaking a lot and I had a lot of clients, and YouTube was a piece of the pie. And then obviously COVID came up, and speaking stopped. A lot of clients had to cut funding, and it was me and a podcast and YouTube. And it's like, well, let's 5X it. Let's just put everything in here. And there's a 1-to-1 correlation in effort and growth there. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at now.
I love that. Yeah. So it was the reverse of what I actually had thought, right? You were more in the beginning doing the speaking and all of that. And as it relates, and obviously as a result of COVID, it forced you even more into the online world.
Isn't that funny?
I thought I had it backward, Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's really fun. And it's hard to say no sometimes, right? Because like it's humbling to get an invite to begin with, and it's, but it's staying the course, I think, is, as I'm sure a big part of it. It's so easy to be pulled in 90 million directions, and none of them are crazy requests. Like, all of them sort of relate to what you're doing. You could say yes to any of them. But yeah, being like, this is what we're building for the time being has been incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. What did you learn in the world of public speaking? Public speaking, as I'm sure you know, right? It's either the number 1 or number 2 fear in the world.
Yeah.
I believe it's public speaking and falling, like heights,
Isn't
right?
that crazy? Yeah.
And then like spiders, I think is number 3,
Yeah.
which is wild to me, right? That human beings, and I'm not going to lie, I would be lying if I said I wasn't at one point or another, and even a tiny bit to this day, like, public speaking can be nerve-wracking, right? So, like, when you got into that world, how did you become good at that?
Yeah, funny note though, I remember that Seinfeld joke. It's like the number one fear is speaking than death. So at a funeral, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
So wild.
Just so funny. But yeah, I was bad at first. I mean, like really bad, as you would imagine. And so like the YouTube grew faster than my ability to speak, you know? So it was like originally just getting out there and sort of stumbling my way through it, and getting a little bit better and a little bit better. I mean, confidence, you realize it's like, it's the name of the game to the point where sometimes how you speak and how you project can be more important than what you say. And I know that sounds crazy, but like I mean, there are songs people sing the lyrics to because it sounds powerful and it sounds good and it sounds catchy. People don't even know what they're saying, right? So it's a little bit of a derivative, but like, yeah, it's just going up there with conviction, speaking your thoughts, being well rehearsed. So you're not thinking at all about what am I going to say here? What words are coming out of my mouth? Do I have this right? It's like, no, you know what you're going to say. You believe in what you're going to say. You're there because those people can be helped by what you're going to say and you can add value to them. And that leaves you to only focus on being confident and being thoughtful in your approach and how you deliver. And I think that has been like the biggest, like I remember my TEDx talk was a huge shift for me because I'm like, I'm going to say this thing. And funny enough, that's not one of my favorite speeches I've done. It was very early on.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I did the thing 100 times. And it was the light bulb moment of like, I'm not thinking at all about the message. I'm thinking about the delivery. And yeah, it's been valuable.
I love that. You know, the idea of giving it 100 times before it was actually time to give it, right?
Yep.
You know, and goes to show what it takes to become good at anything, to become great at anything, right? You look at the Kobes of the world, the Michael Jordans, right? They freaking, these are the guys that 10,000 hours, you know? So I love that. What was that particular speech about? Do you remember? Obviously you remember.
Yeah, it was about running in the rain. It's a metaphor for, and this was one of the first viral speeches on the channel too, for doing the things that are uncomfortable in life. The caveat is like not painful, but slightly uncomfortable, almost annoying, where it's incredibly easy to say no, thank you. So, you know, the idea is I wake up, it's a cold morning in Boston, like winter, there's like frozen slush coming down, and I usually run before work. And so I step outside, I open the door, look out, and I just go, ugh. Like, practically, it makes sense to run at work where there's a gym, or it makes sense to run when I get home. Like, there's a million other times where it's smarter to do it. But that day, for no reason in particular, I got gloves, and I got a beanie, I did my little run around the Charles River, and it was uncomfortable for a little bit, but you acclimate, right? And I came back, and I just remember thinking, like, this is a feeling that's so powerful because I know 99.99999% of the world would go no. Not because they couldn't, but because, like, why? Right? And I think when you start to identify yourself as the person that when it kind of sucks, you step into it, God, that translates, that pushes into so many other aspects of your life. And so that TEDx talk was, you know, about running in the rain, but also speaking how I didn't really want to, but I was in that metaphorical doorway looking out, and it was like, you don't have a choice. It's who you are. You do the uncomfortable thing, right? Or moving from Boston down to Florida because, you know, changes needed to be made in my personal life and with my business. And it hurt and it was uncomfortable, but I thought of that doorway. And it just, that thought, that metaphor has changed my life so many times.
How did you get to the point where you had such thick skin and you're able to do the hard thing, right? Because, you know, I've been living by a saying that I heard a long time ago, right? Which is that if I wake up every day and do the hard things, then my life will be easy. And if I wake up every day and do the easy things, then my life will be hard, right? And I've always tried my best to live by that, right? And to do the very hardest things that I could possibly do every day and get as uncomfortable as I possibly can every day and push myself every day of my life, right?
Sure.
How did you end up with that mindset? I feel like very few people on the planet have that mindset. So like, where did it come from, do you think?
Yeah. Well, to be clear, I think it's something that needs to be continuously relearned. Like it's a staircase where you step into this chaos, and you are able to tame it, and it becomes normal, and then you're looking at the next thing. So it's not like you acquire this mindset and then it's just easy for you. I think it's just setting that expectation that when things become comfortable, okay, I have to claw through. And to answer your question, I think it initiated for me in college on the rowing team, because I had never put my body through anything like that. And going into college, like, I thought I knew what hard work was, and I thought I knew what discomfort was, and I just had no idea. Like, rowing is a sport that's, it's like who can suffer the most or endure the most. And like that to me was so eye-opening. And the coach being like, look, I get it. You're hurting. But the guy at Georgetown and Yale and MIT, they're hurting too, and they're going faster. So figure something out. And that was like, whoa. Right. There was no woe is me or anything like that. And, that was kind of the idea that the uncomfortable thing, like you're not going to be rewarded just for that. That's part of the process, and you need to step into it. You need to step into it continuously if you want to do anything, truly meaningful.
Do you think that you had that at all growing up before rowing? Or do you think that rowing, like a better question might even be, in your opinion, was growing up difficult for you, or was it somewhat easy?
I don't know that it was difficult. There are points where I looked back, like soccer. I was a good soccer player. Wasn't a great one, but I feel like I could have been if I put in the effort and did some of these things. Like music, playing guitar. Good guitarist, not a great one. Perhaps could have been if that's the route I wanted to go, but I didn't understand like what was required. You'd get to a point of discomfort, and that's when you stop. And I know that's almost a cliche, but it's like, what's comfortable for a high school soccer player? It's going to practice and then going home. Like now I'm like looking at the people that went to D1 schools for soccer, and I'm like, I know what they're doing. Right? They're at the gym every day. They have trainers. They're like doing foot drill. Like there's a lot going into it. So, at a basic level, I understood, but that was the first time where it was like, you don't get awards for suffering. You have to suffer and win. I was like, damn.
What would your biggest piece of advice be for somebody who's not that good at doing the hard things in life? Like up until this moment, they're watching, right? Right now, they're watching us have this conversation.
Yeah.
And they have typically taken the easy path every day. They've typically waken up and they've done the easy thing. They've gone left when they probably should have gone right. What would your advice be to them to make a change? Hey, really quick, I'm sure you already know, but I've done over 2,500 wholesale deals in my career, and me and my team consistently do anywhere from 1 to 2 wholesale deals a day. If you're looking to get better at wholesaling, or maybe you're brand new, you've never wholesaled a deal, I would actually love to coach you. I would love to mentor you, and I would love for you to be a part of our education program. All you have to do is go to www.flippinsimple.com, or you can find a link in the description down below and book a strategy session with my team to see if you would be a good fit for our coaching program. Again, this is our exact strategy and formula of how we are actually able to go out every single day and do anywhere from 1 to 2 wholesale deals a day. Nobody's talking about what we're doing, and I really look forward to coaching you and mentoring you. So again, go to www.flippinsimple.com. Now let's just go ahead and get back to the show.
I would have them ask this question to themselves, because this is the question I would ask myself. Why? Because if you're pointed at a North Star that means something to you, it's incredibly easy to motivate yourself. The problem 99.999% of the time is not the person. It's not that the person's broken or lazy or doesn't care. It's that they're operating in an arena that maybe isn't theirs. And they need to find what lights them up. There's one of my favorite books by Greg McCune called Essentialism. And he talks about the power of less. Pushing away all those things we do every single day that maybe we don't think about, but we do out of habit or routine. They don't mean anything to us. And what we find is when we simplify, when we seek out the one or two things that means a lot, that's when some of those problems go away. It becomes easier to get excited and motivate yourself. So it's funny. I feel like so much of it comes down to asking basic questions, taking walks, being by yourself, and asking, how did I spend my day? What do I want to do? Did how I spent my time today align with what I want to do? And so much of the time, the answer is no. There's misalignment there. So, that's where I'd have them start.
How do you think people get misaligned in the first place? Like, were they out of touch with reality? Were they just on autopilot? Like, where, you see people, right, that have gone now maybe the majority of their life totally misaligned. Almost like they wake up one day. Like, how did they get there, right? Like, was it just the accumulation of a bunch of bad decisions over a really long period of time that led them to this place that they don't even know how they got there?
Well, see, I wouldn't say bad. I would say a lack of good decisions, right? And knowing your story, right, I feel like this is antithetical to your situation. I'm coming at it from the opposite. I was 26 until I looked around and went, I don't want any of this. And not only that, I don't have to do it. Like, I can make decisions on my own. I can be the person I want to be. I can try things. I can explore. I can look like an idiot. Who cares? Life is passing me by, right? It wasn't like a lack of intentionality can be such a dangerous thing. It was get good grades, go to a good college, do well in college to get a good job. Get that good job so that you can get a promotion. And by the time all that's passed, you're like, whoa, I haven't even thought for myself, right? And I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation, and that's okay. Like, the intentions aren't bad. People are trying to, do well and impress their parents and be a good person and contribute to society, but you have to take the time to ask yourself, does it align with who I am? So, that's how I would frame that. It's not necessarily bad decisions, but it's the lack of good ones.
Yeah, I love that. What has been one of the most difficult things? And you said that you, like, the last 3 years have been like kind of a hockey stick type of growth, right? On like, let's just say like YouTube in particular, right? How much, I guess, first and foremost, and then we can go back to that other question, like, how hard or difficult was it in the years leading up to the hockey stick where there wasn't a lot of action? Like, you said you were laying on the couch, you had 20 subscribers.
Yeah.
What kept you going?
I think it was just the decision that this is what I do now. And it is that simple. This is how I'm either going to succeed in life or fail in life. Because there were times where it was like, it's funny, like the most painful thing was my ego. Like, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to have this new idea and feel like everyone around you is doing well and knows what they want and is progressing. And you're like, I worked for 3 days on this video and I put it out and it flopped and it missed, as videos do. Like, and you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Or the money drying up. I mean, barely scraping by on just YouTube ad revenue. I remember like worrying about rent, and someone called and was like, will you write some speeches for me? I own a hamburger company, and we're doing a corporate meeting. And I was like, this is a miracle. Like, but it was tough. It was tough personally. It was tough financially. It was tough on the ego. But it was the thing I was doing, period. And I think, I truly believe this, if I left that door cracked even a little bit, I would have got out of there.
Wow.
Because, that was, the middle was not fun,
Yeah, you were all in.
All in.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot, like the idea of like, be all in or all out, but don't be half in and half out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for me, there's never been a plan B, right? And I get that exact same feeling from you. I see so much of myself in you, and like, the idea that like if you decide you're gonna do something, like you're gonna do it, right? Period. There is no plan B. Like, oh, if it doesn't work out, like I've never thought like that,
Right.
You know, and I can't even imagine thinking like that. Can you?
Man, I mean, I can imagine it. I mean, people that think like that tend to not do it. You know, it's like, who was it? I think it was Ryan Holiday that talked about passion and purpose, and like passion, the excitement of like, this is new, this is fun, this is exciting, but then life smacks you in the face and you stop. Purpose is like, I'm in this for the long haul, I'm riding the waves, and this is where I am. And it's like, if you don't have that, you're not gonna be able to sustain the ride.
I agree. Yeah. What was the most difficult thing in particular about YouTube and building that channel? You know, you talk about making a video and it flopping, right?
Yeah.
And God, can I relate, you know? And I'm not as big as you on YouTube. I probably got 50,000 or so, you know, combined between a couple of channels. What was the most difficult thing in growing your channel to as big as you've gotten it today?
So I think I have two answers. I don't think one will surprise you. I think one might. Consistency. So writing every day over the course of almost a decade, and continuing to progress in not only how I wrote, but how I spoke and how I articulated, how I story told, like those things will always be the foundation for YouTube. And then accompanied with thumbnails and I stopped being stubborn and just like started playing to win. It's like, if YouTube will not share a video unless it's 20 minutes, why am I putting out 3-minute videos? Like enough's enough, right? So there's some adaptation there in terms of, okay, well, Ed, you used to write 3-minute speeches that were essentially songs, you know, and now we want these things to be 8, 10, 12 minutes. You got to change your storytelling approach, right? You got to be more thorough with the introduction up front, explaining what you're going to talk about. The story's going to be longer. The so what should be longer and more meaningful. So like, yeah, it was adapting a lot of what I did to win.
How do people get good at everything you just described, like storytelling and being better with tonality and your delivery, right? Like what were you doing? Because you're very aware, right? I would look at you and think you get it, right? You know, right? You're very aware, but I don't think that everybody's that aware. So how were you looking to somebody? Was there a book or a podcast? Like, how did you evolve? How did you get better? Like, did you have a coach? Did you have a mentor?
I did. Well, not necessarily for speaking, but for the YouTube stuff. Like for the speaking thing, it's funny, like, I will say I found the thing that's me, that I have a natural proclivity towards. So like, yes, I've grown and I've really changed over the years, but writing and speaking, I feel like is what I'm put here to do. If I made math my life, I'd be good at math, maybe great at math, but I'd never be excellent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'd never win any, fill in the blank. So part of it's finding what I loved, what I was good at, and then added value. And the other thing is reps. Like through reps, it's what's the term? It's quality through quantity. So through the reps, I learned how, like, I guess I shaped my own voice, but then also, the audience was a test case. Telling me, they didn't like certain styles, they helped me mold it. I mean, in the middle of like 2017, 18, 19, I was doing like spoken word stuff. I have like rap thing. Like, I was trying all kinds of stuff so that, all those little pieces became data points.
Yeah. So interesting. What would the perfect script look like for you now? Like what would the format of a perfect outline or script? I know, I'm sure you're obviously really familiar with Graham Stephan, right?
Yeah.
And, I've known Graham for a really long time, and I've watched Graham go from when I first started following Graham, he had about 10,000 subscribers on one channel.
Oh, so you were the very beginning.
Yeah. And I go way back, and he's I know he's been to my house before, like we've hung out, and to watch him go from that place to, I don't know, 6 or 7 million subscribers between multiple different channels now has been really cool to watch, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing about Graham, on his main channel in particular, I could say, is that there is a very specific format that he follows every single time. Every video is edited almost the exact same. Everything is so similar, right? It's the hook, and then you've got the bullet points. You've got a bunch of like kind of fluff in there that doesn't really feel like fluff, right? But it feels good. It's entertaining. But it really is just a bunch of hard cuts that lead up to some end result, right? And it really is simple. So what would you say, like you say now you're looking at like 15, 20-minute videos is really the ideal target, right?
Yeah. Well, my speeches tend to be about 7 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
And then, the audience really enjoys compilations. So I'll take older speeches in the same category and kind of build that out so that you get to increase the length. In terms of like my writing process, so there's nothing definitive. Like sometimes I'm a little more artsy and poetic with what I'm doing, but not often. Like, so most of the time it's, so the speech I just wrote, for example, on the shape of courage, I'm going to call it. And so the idea is starting with a quote or the main idea that courage takes many shapes. Like sometimes courage is walking, sometimes it's running, sometimes it's crawling. It depends where you are in your life and your circumstance. So the audience goes, okay, like I think I understand that, at least at a high level. And then the middle is the story. I was talking to a friend going through an incredibly hard time, beating himself up, and he's getting help, the help that he needs. He doesn't see that as a big thing. In the season of life he's in right now, that is the most heroic thing he could do. That's courage. And once he moves on and gets better, courage is going to look a little different for him. And it's going to change and change and change. So that's the story. And then the end, the so what or how does it help them, is in your life, you need to be cognizant of where you are and what courage looks like. You need to be sure that you're not beating yourself up for, not running 10 miles when at this point in your life, running one is heroism, So it's just that awareness and understanding that life oscillates in what we can endure and what we should be doing. We need to be aware of that. So point A, point B, point C.
Yeah, I love that. It's so simple in theory, right? And people don't, like even me, I sometimes will struggle to like sit down and write out an outline. And I know every time I do, my videos crush, right? And it's the idea, like you said, of just doing it every single day. Like you know what you have to do, and then you have to wake up and you have to do it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
And you've got to continue to do it for a really long period of time, What is your goal with like that channel and, moving forward? I know we're starting to see, and I don't know if you do any of it, but like, cause you're, correct me if I'm wrong, your main channel is it's your voice, right?
Yeah.
And but I've seen a lot of other like motivational channels out there that it's just a compilation of other people's voice.
Right.
Right. So like, have you ever thought about that at all?
I've thought about it. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely an option in terms of scalability, like opening it up and doing that.
Hey, real quick, I don't know if you know, but I have a totally separate YouTube channel that you probably haven't checked out before, and it's just called Austin Zaback. And I've actually started a new series on that channel where I break down wholesale deals, okay? Wholesale deals that we've done in our business, and I show you step by step how we got the deal, how we sold the deal. I break down all the numbers on the deal, and I even show you the HUD of the deal, so you know we're not playing around. Now, I don't know how long you've been following me, but I do anywhere from 1 to 2 wholesale deals every single day. And my goal is to get to 100 deal breakdowns on that YouTube channel. So definitely, if you haven't already, go check it out. I'll link it down in the description below. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get back to the show.
We'll see. I don't know. It's funny because it's such a personal thing. Yeah, I really enjoy the way the direction of the channel now, and like when I think of next steps and growth.
Yeah.
I think of more artistic ways and different ways to communicate that, you know, as opposed to sort of changing the approach altogether.
How many views do you get a month right now on that YouTube channel? Roughly
4.2, 4.3 million.
so many. Yeah, you've got to love that.
It's crazy. The internet's crazy, right? And like they're people. Those are people. Views are people. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, 4.4 million people in a month heard you tell a story.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest month you've ever had in terms of overall views?
I think it was June. Yeah.
So recently.
Yeah. Yep. That was the 4.4. And watch time is really how I'm measuring, you know. And there's, I mean, I'm sure, you know, YouTube analytics is great, you know, and showing watch time, views, subscribers.
How much, for all the nerds, we just got to talk about it really
Let's
quick,
do it,
right?
yeah.
For the people who are really trying to get big on YouTube, because I think a lot of people are, you know.
Dude, I love this stuff.
Yeah. What's a good average view duration? How much percentage viewed? If you could, if you could possibly simplify it to that degree.
So I'm not dodging the question, but the most valuable videos I put out are 3 hours long. So if you think about that, that's not going to have a 70% view rate. That's just an astronomical amount of time. That's crazy. I would say if your video is 2.5 minutes and you're not getting 50% view rate, I would rethink some things. You know, so I do think longevity has the longevity of the video plays a role. But yeah, so in the first minute, you got to be looking at the drop-off rate, the overall view duration, and the click-through rate is important as well.
What click-through are you looking for when you post a video?
So again, that depends entirely on the amount of impressions the video's getting. So this is something I'm working through right now because thumbnails, you hate to work this hard on a craft and then have thumbnails be so, you know, but like they're incredibly valuable. So you can sort thumbnails by impressions. So if I go most impressions to least, ranks them all. If there's two videos with 8 million impressions each, and one has a 5 click-through rate, 5%, and the other one's 1.8%, well, then I'm looking at it and going, that's a big discrepancy. Maybe I change the one that's smaller, right? Or test the one that's smaller. So it helps you sort of see discrepancy in videos with similar amount of impressions. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Because I understand YouTube at a pretty high level, you know. What do you think the most important thing is between title, thumbnail, tags?
Tags don't matter. I almost want to say 0%. Title matters somewhat. Thumbnails really matter.
Really?
Yeah.
Thumbnail over everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is so funny, right? Because when you look back, you know, to the Casey Neistat days and, you know, like the OGs of YouTube, right? Like, really, that is where the idea of clickbait came from.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and that was back, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you know, the people who started on YouTube, like way back in the day, the algorithm didn't care as much about view duration as it did click through. And what happened was people would put thumbnails and titles that had hardly anything to do with the actual video.
Yeah.
Click through was extremely high, but view duration was terrible, right? And then YouTube obviously changed the algorithm to say, okay, now we care that the click through is high, but also once they click, you have to maintain a high view duration.
Yeah, no, they've gotten a lot smarter in that regard.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a high click-through rate and at a low view duration, it's going to hurt you. Yeah, they'll drop it in the algorithm.
What do you think the main difference is? Like, you know, I've always said that no platform that I've ever seen can compete with YouTube. Like, I've always said that. I'm like, YouTube, they've freaking, you know, all the way around, it feels like they just have it figured out. Like, you can't even touch them when it comes to just like the way they treat their creators. You know, the idea that I can make 55% of what YouTube, like me and YouTube, like if an advertiser pays $1, I can take 55 cents and they'll take 45.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thought. You know, Instagram doesn't do that. TikTok doesn't do that. You know, nothing else does that. Like, why? And that's just one example, but why do you think or do you think that another platform will ever even come close to touching YouTube?
I don't know about another platform. What I do believe is that for building a community and cultivating an audience, long form content's going to win every time. There's just the investment is so much higher into your work for someone to sit down and watch that versus the reels and TikToks where it's scroll. I mean, I've heard of people with millions of TikTok subscribers that have day jobs. You know, it's like I don't want to say value add because that's subjective, but you know, the ability to grow and reach an audience is just different.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram and I'm doing my best to win there. But it's not for the sake of winning on those platforms. It's to bring people to my long form stuff because that's where I feel like, I'm adding the most value.
Yeah, I love that. What would be your biggest recommendation for people in 2023 and beyond to get on social media? Where should they start? If somebody's watching right now and they're where you were 5 years ago or whatever, you know, like, where should they even begin? What should they do?
I was just talking to my little cousin about this. So the first thing I would say is, yes, there are a ton of platforms. I would understand which one is most conducive to your skill set. If you're great at turning on a mic and rolling, look at podcasts. If you're great with video, look at YouTube. You know, if you're an artist, Instagram. Short form, you know, maybe it's TikTok. If it's jokes, one-liners, whatever, look at Twitter. I would really play around there until you find that sort of alignment and then go all in, as opposed to the temptation to just be everywhere. I understand that point. There's a lot of very successful people that say, look, you have to be everywhere. And you do. But that's at a certain point in time, right? You need the resources to be able to scale and do that. And if you're starting, you're not there yet. So one, find out your skill set, a platform that works with it, grow your voice, and for the love of God, ignore all the noise and people telling you what's best and where you need to be and where you need to go. Right? Trust your intuition and your art and keep showing up day after day after day after day. You'll build an audience, you build your skill set. And those two things in unison are a pretty powerful thing.
Is there a particular style of content that you see on YouTube working the best right now? And what I mean by that is, like, I remember the days, and I feel like they're coming back. I'd love to get your feedback, where vlogging was the really big thing, right? Like, everybody wanted to be a vlogger. They wanted to show a day in the life, right?
Yeah.
And the Casey Neistats of the world kind of blew that up. And then the Logan Pauls kind of ran with that, right? And then you had a bunch of people end up, kind of doing that. And then you kind of had the, like, how-to community kind of come up. And that could be how-to anything, right? How to makeup, how to, stock market, how to real estate, how to whatever, right? And then you had, like, the prank channels, and then the Mr. Beasts of the world, that took that to the very furthest. Well, I guess his was never really pranks. It was more, I don't even know what you would call that niche. I mean, like, just doing extreme stuff all the time,
Yeah.
Is there a particular strategy, like, that you would, because I feel like, I'll give you an example. Like, I've seen people that have taken the how-to approach, but they've incorporated it in the vlog style or format. So, like, throughout their day, so the title and the thumbnail might be like, how to pick up a girl or something to that effect, right? And as they go throughout their day, they're showing their life and their day, but it's really a how-to video, and that happens to be their style, right? And they kill it at that.
Yeah.
Is there one style in particular you think wins?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a specific style, I do believe that if you can somehow marry education with entertainment, you can get, Graham Stephan is just perfect there.
Perfect example.
Yeah. And, I don't know if it's just my algorithm. Like, I get a lot of, like, that type of personal finance, like that type of very practical stuff, but also tied into, a host that has energy and is entertaining, and then also making the video entertaining. So yeah, like marrying those two things I think is incredibly valuable. But I don't think you can point to a specific like style or approach and say it won't work. I think it's so dependent on the person,
Yeah. Do you think the number one reason that people don't succeed at content is because that they're inauthentic?
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of looking around. I mean, so I always say, like, the beauty of the information age is, like, it's all there. You want to know how to dribble a basketball? Look at how LeBron does it. Grow a business? Look at how Bezos does it. Like, everything's there to copy. The problem is people forget that they won't win or lose by copying someone else. They'll win or lose by developing their own authenticity. And, like, yes, you take bits and pieces, but I don't think, a lot of people see that and are patient enough to grow that. It's like, this is what I want. I want to be like him. So, how many fake Mr. Beasts are there now?
Right.
And they'll never be him because they're emulating something that already exists. And so, yeah, I think.
Is there anything new though? Like, can you emulate something that doesn't exist? I mean, can the average person, can anybody, can everybody? Right? Like, is there anything new in the world? Is there really such thing as, like, can I do it differently?
Well, it's like merging categories, Like, Steal Like an Artist is a great book. It talks about this in a different respect, but it's taking something that you like or you enjoy and then putting your own unique bend into it. So there's always this subtle transformation. We're always building off of each other. But the thing is that, again, that takes time and that, exploration. Like how many bands did the Beatles shape? They didn't copy the Beatles. They weren't trying to be the Beatles, but the Beatles inspired them to move on and combine their approach with their own unique. So it's always a blending of things. There's nothing wrong with trying to emulate someone you like, but just let yourself ultimately shine through as well.
I love that. Yeah, in full transparency, for a long time, like, I tried to be other people, and I think, I don't think I know. On YouTube in particular, I think on Instagram and the short duration platforms of content, I was, like, always kind of myself. But for some reason on YouTube, for a long time, like, I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. And it wasn't coming from a bad place. It was that I thought that I almost, for some reason, had to, And I've actually had the most growth that we've ever had over the last probably half a year as a result of just being me. And when I do a podcast, I'm just me. When I do a video, I'm just me, And we've had a lot of growth lately.
That's
So
awesome, man.
I love
how liberating does that
oh my
feel,
gosh,
right?
dude. On another level, right? And now it's just like sky's the limit, which is a really cool thing. Have you ever thought about doing, like, any other type of content? Like, when you think about the main channel that you have right now being the motivational channel, right?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever thought about having another channel, where you might do, like, I don't know, maybe like vlog style or show your life or whatever it might be. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I have. And I've played around with, there's a few vlogs on the channel. There's, but, like, this is when I say, like, sharing my sort of growth along the way. I'm at a point now, and I'm super excited about this, where, like, I have resources to help me so that, I can do what's required for YouTube 1 or 2 days a week and then have 5 days to, like, experiment and do some of these other things that, like, even saying that, I get giddy because it's like, think about that. Different YouTube channel approaches, maybe an hour-long type of production, like all these things that I feel like, and again, maybe some will swing and miss, but maybe some won't. Maybe some will captivate in a way I could never have dreamed of. So, yeah, I do, and I have plans to step foot in a lot of different arenas and try some things. It just, when you're, a one-man band, it's it's hard to free up that capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that a little while ago, and I love what you said because it reminded me of something that Gary Vee said, and in a roundabout way, you disagree with Gary Vee ever so slightly, or you at least added additional perspective to what I've heard Gary Vee say, which Gary Vee says, be everywhere all the time, nonstop, 100% of the time. And you said, yeah, when you're ready.
Right.
Like, do that when you have the team, basically, right? Like, you can't, in the beginning, you've got to focus, right? And then you can be everywhere.
Yeah. And so part of it, like I have mentors that say I took too long, and like perhaps they're right. But like if you're playing the long game, my goal is to be incredibly good at what I do. Like I want at 40, 45 to be killing it. And so I didn't feel the need to rush to be on, whatever, TikTok or whatever. So yeah, it's, I think.
Hey, real quick, I don't know if you know, but I actually wholesale real estate nationwide, and I have buyers all over the nation looking for incredible deals. So if you're a wholesaler and you locked up a deal and you're struggling to find a buyer, I would love to partner with you up on it, and I would love to help you sell it. All you have to do is text me 480-418-5339 and just let me know that you have a deal that you need help selling. Again, the phone number is 480-418-5339. Let me know that you have a deal, you want me to bring a buyer. Somebody on my team will reach out to you right away and we will help you get it sold. Now let's just go ahead and get back to the show.
Gary's point is more. Don't be shy. Get your stuff out there. Find a way, all of which is correct. But I look around and I also see people asking, how do I get 1 million followers? Without asking, why would they follow me? It's empty Amazon trucks. What are you delivering? What are you bringing to the world? Figure that out first, and then get good at delivering it. And you do that by doing it consistently in one place that's manageable. And then once you've captured that, then you start moving out. I strongly believe in that. Again,
Wow.
A lot of people disagree, but that's, to me, if you're playing the long game, that's how you win.
I agree with you completely, by the way, because I've done it both ways. And I've found that the only one of them works, your favorite quote you had said was, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music.
So good.
Why do you
good.
like that quote so much?
Because I look back on the past decade and just all those instances where if I didn't believe there would be something to celebrate down the road, it'd be incredibly hard to keep going. No one comes up to you and says, hey, that idea is going to be amazing, kid. Hey, keep going. Your ideas are killer. It's like, no one cares at best, and people criticize at worst until you bring results to life. So therefore, necessarily, you have to be the one to do it. You have to be the time traveler. You have to arrive there with your mind before you do in body. And I think when people understand that, it'll give them some comfort and some calm, knowing like, I feel delusional trying to bring this to life. It's like, yeah, well, it's okay because it's not there yet. You're the only one that sees it. So celebrate that and trust it. People hold on to that, and it's strength.
God, I love that. I love that so much. I just phenomenal advice, by the way. For people to actually implement into their life. I love that. Couple more questions. I'll get you out of here. Would you have any advice for your younger self if you were doing it all over again?
Yes, it would be perfectionism and understanding how dangerous that is. I think before we talked about quality through quantity, you have to get the reps in. And there were so many times where I held back because it wasn't perfect. And, I'd mask that and, hey, I'm a perfectionist. And it's like, no, you're scared. That's all, And so understanding that would have just meant more reps quicker. And I think, failing forward, as they say.
Yeah, phenomenal advice. Your mantra is sometimes success is merely hanging on when others would be letting go. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a quote from my freshman crew coach. Or maybe he paraphrased a quote from someone else. But the first time I heard that, he would say sometimes success is merely hanging on when others would be letting go. We'd be doing these pieces on the erg or on the boat, on the water, and would just be tired. And, your mind is just trying to find ways to rationalize doing less, not pulling as hard, giving in just a little bit. And, the idea is, look, you don't have to do anything spectacular right now. All you have to do is not stop. And when you can, condense that down to, okay, all I have to do is not stop, keep doing what I'm doing a little longer than the guy next to me or girl next to me, that goes a long way. There's a lot of times we think we need to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And it's like you just need to keep stepping, little step.
I love that. Final question for you. If you had a billboard and the entire world could see the billboard, you could get a message to anybody. And I'm talking life, business, relationships, balance. I don't know, something you've learned, something you'd want to tell people. You could just tell them one thing, but you could tell 7.8 billion people. What would you tell them?
Oh, man. If those two quotes are off the table, it would probably be show up. Be the person that shows up. There's power in that. When you don't want to, when things are hard, when you're feeling good, when you're not, show up and keep pressing forward.
I love that. Dude, I think if everybody did that, the world would be a pretty cool place.
Yeah. I think they amaze themselves and the world around them, for sure.
I completely agree. Eddie, I really appreciate you being on the show, man. I'd love to have you on again eventually. I'd love to do more with you. I know your time is extremely valuable, so we'll get you out of here. And I know you've got to do another one. Where can people find you? Where can people find your channel that you run? And then where can people find you if they want to reach out to you in particular?
Yeah, for sure. So YouTube is Eddie Pinero, and the handle is Your World Within. And same thing on Instagram, Eddie Pinero, and the handle is Your World Within. You can just send me a message, and I'll get back to you.
I really appreciate you being on the show. It was an honor.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yep, of course.
All right.
Hey, if you're still watching the show, do me a huge favor. Subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button. Drop a comment down below. And if you're listening on any platform, leave a 5-star review. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.